Welcome to your evening unwind practice. Hi friends, I am Katie Arnold. Welcome to my channel. Our practice tonight is going to keep us low to the ground, and it's going to be super gentle and restorative. Prop wise for this practice, you are going to need one blanket. You could replace this blanket with a chunky towel. It doesn't have to be any kind of fancy yoga blanket. Find whatever you have available to you. You can also grab any other props that might feel supportive. So if you want an extra blanket on hand, if you have a bolster, I'll give some opportunities in this practice where you could use the bolster instead of the blanket or along with the blanket. And then you will also need a wall space. We are going to do a legs up the wall. Now, if you don't have access to a wall that you can send your legs up, please don't leave this practice. You could also use the back of a couch. You could use the front of a couch or the edge of your bed. So find ways that you can still be able to get your legs up. And then if you're in that situation that you're using the edge of a bed or the front of your couch or a chair, you're just going to bend your knees at a 90-degree angle when we're in that legs up the wall. But I will talk you through all of that when we get there. So grab any props you need, roll out your mat if it's not already, and we'll get started in child's pose for our practice. If you are on a harder surface like I am here, it might be kind of nice to take that blanket. Mine is still folded up a few times here, and it's just going to come underneath the knees for a little bit of support. If you are using a bolster here, you could slide that bolster in between your legs and fold over the bolster like this. But you don't need that bolster. I'm not going to do this practice with the bolster today, but finding that child's pose, knees out wide, big toes towards one another, forehead can soften. You are also welcome here to grab an additional blanket or a pillow and slide it underneath the forehead if it's a little bit more challenging for you to get your forehead all the way down to the mat today. And checking in with your breath. Strong and steady inhales. Releasing exhales. There's no real breath pattern that I'm going to guide you through here today, but my invitation, because this is a practice that we are looking to unwind from our days, can you allow each exhale to be a little bit longer than the inhale? That longer exhale helps to signal to the nervous system that it's safe to slow down. Helps take us to that rest and digest space. And while we're here, giving yourself a moment to maybe set an intention for our time on the mat. That intention might be just as simple as unwinding. Maybe you turn it into an affirmation or a mantra. Like, I give myself permission to relax. I invite myself to soften. I am unwinding from my day. If any of those resonate, maybe you pick them up, put them in your pocket. And if none of them land, that's okay. Just leave them there. Few more breaths. Allowing the shoulders to soften. Unclenching the jaw. Letting go of the day. Start to press into your hands. Lift yourself up. If you are using a bolster, that might come with you here. And if we are using the blanket, we're going to take that blanket. So I'm keeping mine folded up a few times here, but then I'm just going to roll it up. And I often refer to this as my little blanket burrito. So just rolling it up, and I'm going to set it a little bit closer to the top than halfway. And I'm sitting about almost a foot, about 6 to 8 inches away from this blanket roll. You could also replace this with your bolster. And I'm just going to take my right hand, slide it all the way down, and I'm lying over this bolster. So I'm keeping my knees bent and stacked here, but you could straighten them a little bit more if that feels stable enough for you. But I want a little bit more grounding for this evening practice. So I don't want to worry about activating too many muscles to find that balance. And then you could keep this left hand just kind of like resting here, or you might reach it up and overhead, extending this side body stretch, palms together. Just breathing into that left side body, gentle opening. Allowing any part of your day that you're ready to release, just kind of roll off and away. Leaving it behind. If there's some aspect of your day that is something you're going to have to deal with, that's okay. We're putting it down for this practice, for this time that we're together, for this time that we're on our mat. Maybe even visualizing putting that thing in a separate container, a box that we are just setting off to the side. When you're ready and in a place to open that box and deal with that thing, we can do that later. But just even that gentle visualization here can help to create a little bit of distance from that stressor. One more breath. Let it go. And slowly press yourself up. Bring both hands down. And we'll just start to take that to the other side. So swinging those hips around, coming onto that left hip. Left hand comes down. You start to walk it out and away from that blanket roll or that bolster if you decided to use your bolster. Right arm can reach up and overhead. Hips are stacked. Maybe a bend in those knees for more stability. Inviting those eyes to soften down, or if it doesn't feel safe for the eyelids to close all the way, just see if you can find that place to rest your gaze so the eyelids can become heavy and that we can just keep that gaze from kind of darting all around our space. And it might be supportive for you to take some cleansing breaths out of an open mouth. Taking that deep breath in. Exhale and sigh. Maybe you take a few more like that. Noticing how it feels, any changes that might come with it. Any more release or letting go. Last breath here. And bring both hands down to the mat. Start to press yourself back up. We are going to take that blanket with us, but this time we're going to unroll it and we're going to fold it again a couple more times. So now I have my nice folded up blanket. We're going to come all the way down onto our backs. And again, you have the option to use that bolster here instead. But roll yourself onto your back. And just bring that blanket all the way over towards the left side of your mat. Bring both knees into your chest, coming into our Apanasana. And just take some gentle rocks side to side at first. That feels nice. Maybe you take some circles with the knees. Massaging that low back. And reverse the direction of those circles if you were taking them. Those knees through center. Take a nice breath in. And exhale, drop both knees over towards the left. And those knees can either rest down on that blanket or your bolster, or you could take that blanket and bring it in between the knees. So you can find the variation that works best for you here. Right arm can come out to the right. You could cactus it. You could shift your gaze over that right shoulder. You can keep your gaze up towards the ceiling, whatever feels better for your neck tonight. And thinking about just twisting out any part of our day that we're ready to let go of, twisting out any stress or tension, just like you're wringing out a washcloth. I want you to think about wringing out any of that stress that might be holding in your body. And we're going to come back through to center. So release that blanket if it was in between your knees. And just take it and move it over towards the right side. It'll be really nice and available for however we want to best use it. And then take some gentle rocks side to side again, just noticing any differences and how you feel. And then inhale through center. Exhale, drop both knees over towards the right. And once again, either both knees stacking on your blanket or bolster, or bringing that blanket in between the knees. Maybe left arm out, maybe gaze shifts. And just also taking a moment here and recognizing if it feels a little bit different from one side to the other. I notice for myself that this side doesn't feel quite as easeful as the other side. And so that could also mean that you want to take that blanket and maybe you fold it up again so you have a little bit more support between those knees, or maybe you find that's a little bit too much. And so just not letting this mean anything, not judging ourselves, but we're just simply noticing these small or maybe not so small differences from one side to the other, and then adjusting to meet ourselves there. And start to bring it back up through center. This is where we are going to move towards our wall or the back of a couch or whatever you're using here. Sit yourself up, and while you could use your bolster in this instance, I really prefer the blanket here. And so you could keep it folded up as much as it was for our twister. I like to kind of take a couple of those folds out. So for me, it's more about softening the surface. And then it's a little bit clunky to get into legs up the wall, but I like to sit as close to that wall as possible. And then come down onto one side. For me, this is onto my left side. And then I start to roll onto my back, and then it's a little bit easier of a transition to get the legs up. And then just allowing yourself to soften here. If you find you're too far away, just start to scooch a little bit closer. And if you are using the front of a couch or the edge of a bed or something for your legs up the wall, you're just going to bring that bend to your knees. And so your knees will end up being at a 90-degree angle, more or less, and your calves can just rest on the seat of that couch or on the top of your bed as opposed to having your legs straight. And I just like to take my arms out to the side. Again, thinking about softening the eyelids down. Invitation to take any of those cleansing breaths if you notice anything coming up here. I started to notice a little bit of a tightness in my chest. Just this like culmination of stress and anxiety, just kind of like living there. So for me, it felt really nice to take that big breath out and start to chip away at that stress that my physical body is holding onto. It is known that our bodies hold on to stress and tension and trauma, whether big T or little t trauma. And we have to find the ways that we can start to chip away at that. And our yoga practice is one of the really nice ways that we can start to find some of that release. And so don't ever be surprised if you are in some kind of practice and you notice emotions bubbling up to the surface. That is okay. Don't try to hold back that release. If tears need to come, let them come. All we're doing is helping to release, find a physical, mental, emotional release. It's healthy. Two more breaths here. I'm going to come out of this legs up the wall in the same way that we got into it, just reversing those movements. So I like to start by bringing my knees towards my chest and then rolling onto one side. And you can just press yourself up just enough to get onto your back and come into a shavasana. It might be with legs extended, or if it feels better for you today, that might be feet planted. For me, that's what feels really nice here, is taking my feet out about as wide as my yoga mat and letting my knees knock in towards one another. So I just want to give you options, give you that permission slip if a traditional shavasana is not feeling like your jam right now. Find what does feel supportive, grounding, allowing ourselves to just fully let go and release here in our version of a shavasana. You are using a bolster, you could always slide it underneath your knees. You could always take that blanket and bring it underneath your head like a little pillow if that feels more comfortable. And if what feels best to you is just to be right here, right where you are, then that's great too. Take a big breath in through your nose. Let it out of an open mouth. Start to wiggle fingers and toes. Rock the head from side to side. Take any movements to help reawaken the body. Rolling over onto one side, finding a fetal posture. And as you're ready, pressing yourself up, meeting me in a seat, whatever seat works for you, using any props that feel supportive for you. Letting the shoulders relax down the back. And really not rushing ourselves through the end of our practice. And as you're ready, sweep those arms out nice and wide. Let your palms meet overhead. Pull those hands down through heart center. I hope you feel a little more released, that you've been able to unwind for your day, and that you've softened for your evening. Om Shanti, peace. Thank you so much for joining me for this practice. Please take a moment to subscribe to my channel if you're not already. It helps more people find more classes, free yoga, grows our community here, and allows me to keep making more free practices available to you. If you don't have my free daily practice calendar, the link is in the description below. I help take all of the guesswork out of your daily practice. And so, with that said, thank you so much for joining me. I will see you back on your mats for your next practice.